Now in the meantime, what's been happening is, because we've given that a chance to sync up, and we can see now that we now have our little secondary icon next to here. So if we go back into our deployment, there's EduDemo. We have primary, secondary once again. If we click on our previously problematic secondary, you can see that it's back. It is a secondary now. If we go into our logs, we should be able to see the time that actually happened. Actually, the logs haven't come across yet, so let's have a really quick look at the logs themselves. Here we go. There we go. So that's the thing. So there it is, 200451 UTC. We can see the oplog sync finishing off. That's after the initial clone and index builds and everything else. It stops being in recovering, or startup, which I think is what it was listed as in MMS, and then switches to secondary, 200452. So here's our little event. Here's where we shut down and restart, and since then it's been working away. There's not much to see in the way of op counters, but we should see other things. So there we go. So there was a bunch of cloning, index building going on here, and then finally some inserts. So that's it catching up with the oplog from the other members. So that's the inserts being applied there at the end. Replication headroom between here and here, of course, there is no replication. It's doing the initial clone, the initial sync. Everything else should be getting back towards normal. So you can see during the sync, there is a bit of background flush going on, right? It's going to have to do a significant amount of flushing to disk. In fact, this is up over 10 seconds for the background flush average here, and that makes sense. You're basically inserting data as fast as you can, having to flush it to disk quite a bit. So taking a long time at that point makes sense. And then the bit at the end here is where it recovers. Because at this point you're not flushing any data. What you're probably doing here is doing a big index build or something similar, and then that gets flushed to disk and committed to disk. I think this is probably just the smaller test database getting done. So this is M202. This is the index build, which takes a while, and then this is the flush to disk for the index build, and then finally the extra data happening here, and of course the oplog sync itself happening there as well. So that's what an initial sync looks like from a background flush average perspective for a nice big data set. Anything else interesting? Memory goes up as you'd expect. Lock percentage, again, we kind of have a gap because it wasn't recording anything. It was busy doing an initial clone, so it was pretty much globally locked at that point for that. So this is actually very similar to our outage problem. If you remember correctly, there was no lock percentage data between the start of the problem and the end of the problem. This is simply because you couldn't get it. The global lock was taken, so there was no way to record the stat. So when it came back, it was at about 30% effective, and then dropped right off as soon as all the operations had been applied, things like that. Replication lag, as you can see, had been growing, and is now back down to 0. Again, there's a gap in the stats there while that initial sync was going on. The red bar, of course, which we've seen before, is the restart. That's us shutting it down, starting it again, just in case anyone was wondering. Database storage, as you'd expect, grows steadily over time during the initial sync. Page faults, again, very similar to the effect we saw with background flush average. Things getting faulted off disk here, and then back to normal down here at the bottom, and during the index build, nothing going on really. Journal stats, lots of stuff being written to disk, lots of stuff being written to disk, lots of stuff being synced, committed, etc. So that's what the initial sync looks like. We now have a healthy secondary. We've figured out what the issue was. It was me running a very silly command. So somewhat of a contrived scenario, but you can see how you go through it. We also had a red herring at the start, which was an external I/O event, which might have derailed your investigation for a while. And we covered this sort of subtle point that the data missing can be as important as actually having a nice big spike and things like that. So you have to be eagle-eyed. You have to have a good idea of what your time frame are. You might have to go back into the logs to actually figure out exactly what happened, that kind of thing. And then the other thing we kind of covered is how much easier it is to get something back and synced from scratch here. We let automation take care of it. We had a decent enough oplog window. It's not a very busy set. It's in a demo environment. It was able to sync from scratch, catch up, and is now back as a healthy member. And we once again have a healthy replica set again.